Twitter has been having a rough time lately, recently even restricting the number of posts that users can read a day. This made everyone who uses Twitter angry because, let's face it was a stupid move. Like, how are you supposed to grow if you're actively pushing users away from your site? Well, Mark Zuckerberg seems to have smelled the blood in the water because in a series of surprise announcements, he first announced that Meta's Twitter competitor, or rather Twitter clone, Threads, was going to launch Thursday. Seems like he really didn't want to waste the opportunity though, so they then announced that it would launch Wednesday night. Now, I've had a chance to use the app, and well, let's just say I have a few thoughts. Did Zuckerberg's mad rush to get the app to market before Twitter can recover from its most recent stunt work? Or is it going to harm Threads in the long run? Well, I'll be frank. I think Threads is basically just a terrible Twitter ripoff in the same vein as all the other ones, and I expect that unless they make massive changes, it will never recover. To be fair, the basic look of the app is fine. It starts off in dark mode and the UI is fairly intuitive if you've ever used Twitter, since it really just seems like they didn't really try to hide the fact that they're copying. Instead of tweets, you've got threads, which are functionally the same as tweets. Pretty much the only thing I like about the app is the UI though, so Zuckerberg, if you're watching, give that UI designer a raise. But the app has a bunch of problems as it stands now, so let's talk about those. First and foremost, the biggest issue was downloading the app. I saw that it launched, but when I searched for it in the Android App Store, nothing came up except for a Slack alternative company of the same name. And I had to read an article about how to get in on the launch. Basically, you had to open up the Instagram app, type Threads into the search bar, and then a ticket emoji would appear. You clicked on that and it would give you your invite and a time. My time was right away. So it took me to a download page where I was able to download it. Now I will admit that from a 1,000-foot view, this is kind of a cool as heck way to get into a new app. It makes you feel like a spy or something. But as a way to launch an app, it's not a great way to get people to actually start using it. I assume they did it this way to lower the server load on the first launch, but I also think it might have hurt a little of the momentum, so this one's a win-lose. Then you get into the app, which seems to sign in with Instagram as a default. Once again, kind of an issue, at least for us young people. Instagram and Facebook have a problem where basically old people, and specifically your old relatives, can figure out how to get on and use them, which doesn't matter too much these days, since young people have abandoned Facebook and it's harder for your old Aunt Becky to do something that will make you facepalm on Instagram. But I really think that the idea of having your Threads account connected to your Instagram and Facebook is kind of a bad idea for Threads, since people abandoned Facebook because they didn't want to have to interact with their relatives online. Now imagine Twitter, but your old Aunt Becky sees and comments on all your tweets. Threads is kind of risking that. I would not be surprised if it eventually finds a niche as the boomer Twitter. Perhaps the biggest problem I have with Threads though is the feed, or the page where it shows you the threads. This page on screen now. On Twitter, you have the option of a few different timelines. Notably, one called the For You feed, which is made up mostly of algorithmically selected tweets, with some of the tweets from people you follow mixed in. And then there's a separate option that lets you see stuff only from people you follow. Now, I'm the kind of guy that usually wants to only see stuff that I might care about, so I almost never use the For You feed, unless I'm bored and I've already doom scrolled my following feed. But, as of right now, it seems like Threads has launched with only an algorithmically fed feed, and no option to swap to a feed of people you follow. This is a deal breaker for me, as I don't really want to see stupid posts made by brands, just would rather see what I follow. I'm certain this is something that is eventually going to come, because the app is basically unusable for people like me without it, and I suspect that it's a major feature that was slept on in favor of a fast launch. But in this case, I think it will really hurt it. To be honest, I can't really see any way to sort threads at all, except maybe by searching. I really can't overstate how awful it is to use without this feature. No one actually wants to read nothing but the slop they're being fed by the algorithm. This is the reason I won't be using Threads going forward. It probably doesn't help that over the years I've been slowly clicking on Instagram ads that have the least relevance to me, so that it would always recommend me the weirdest possible stuff that has no relation to me, and to keep the Instagram algorithm from knowing too much about me. Based on the ads I get on there, I think I've managed to get them confused on my political affiliations and my age, which they drastically overestimate. I would bet that they think I'm like 50 rather than in my early 20s, which doesn't have too much of a real effect on Instagram except ads. But I think it might have carried that info over into Threads, because man, the stuff it recommends me is so out of touch with what I would even want to see. It keeps recommending me brand posts from boomer brands, and it's like, damn, I don't know anyone who's going on Threads to catch up with the latest posts from Macy's. Why would they recommend me Macy's? They've literally posted 2 threads, and both of them were shown to me. I have not shopped in a Macy's since I was a little child. But anyway, the weird algorithm driving the app, and probably also driving our society closer to collapse, is not the only worry that they seem to have at launch, based on a lot of the stuff I've seen people posting on, well, Twitter. not Threads. It seems like a lot of people were having issues with the Threads app, probably just to launch, overstressing Meta's hardware, which is not exactly abnormal, but it is definitely embarrassing for a company like Meta, that you would assume would be ready to handle an influx of traffic on launch day. Just another point that leads me to think that they just yeeted this app out to the public because they saw Musk struggling for a few days. Also, and this is kind of a weird point, but it doesn't seem like Meta actually bought Threads.com, since the Threads.com URL seems to be owned by the same Slack alternative company that was ranked in the App Store. I think they might be unironically going with Threads.net at this point, which I find to be very funny. I can't believe they were not able to buy out that URL from the other company. I bet Zuckerberg is pissed about it, to be honest. So overall, is Threads a bad app, or is it a threat to Twitter's supremacy? Right now, I'd say Twitter's not in any danger. Like I said, personally, I find the app to be virtually unusable in the state that it launched in, and I suspect that the bad first impression will hurt Threads in the long run. However, for a certain type of person, pretty much the exact opposite of me, the sanitized, algorithm-fed slop feed might be perfect. I mean, Facebook basically does that, and it still has a decent number of users. I still think that it will have a lot more pull with the older crowd than it wants to, and that it could survive to basically be a slightly weirder version of Twitter that's populated entirely by brands, old people, and politicians that think making a stand against Elon Musk is more important than having anyone actually read what they wrote. This could change though. If Meta is really aggressive about this, I think they could turn it around, but considering their size and history, I have little hope. Big sweeping changes require someone with direct control, and it certainly feels like Meta is a giant bureaucracy. Also, I've left it for the end, but I'm sorry guys, the logo for Threads just isn't good. It's a fancy @ symbol. Even Twitter's bird logo is more creative. So, what do you guys think? Have you tried Threads? Will you? If you did, how did you feel about it? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching all the way till the end. Have a great day, and God bless you.